Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Sarah Jones with Politicus Radio. Joining me for Donald Trump Watch is Politicus USA's Editor-in-Chief, Jason Easley. Nice to have you on, Jason.
Yes, we're down to 13 days. The Republican Party has 13 days until the end, until their worst nightmare comes true. Donald Trump.
Republicans have 2 weeks to stop Donald Trump from destroying their party. Conventional wisdom is handing the nomination to Donald Trump after Super Tuesday last night, but there is still a slight chance that Republicans can save their party from the international shame that is Donald Trump. Here's what would have to happen in order for this to work. Okay, Trump has won 10 of the first 15 contests, but only 46% of the delegates that have been awarded, and he needs an outright majority of delegates to win his party's nomination. Republicans, let's say it again, have 2 weeks to stop Donald Trump, and their opportunity is in the winner-take-all races of Florida and Ohio on March 15th. The hope is, I would say the Republican hope, is that Senator Marco Rubio will take his home state of Florida and Governor John Kasich will take his home state of Ohio. The problem with this strategy is Florida doesn't look like a lock for Rubio. It's sort of like his home state knows him well enough to dislike him, sort of like what we're seeing with Chris Christie right now. So Ted Cruz is selling himself as the guy who can stop Donald Trump, and he is making a convincing argument about this, and he is second with delegates after Trump, although he only got 3 states on Super Tuesday, including his home state of Texas, where he did get a lot of delegates. So Republicans are stuck relying on Rubio and Cruz for an assist. Cruz is up to it, but Rubio looks shaky. What are your thoughts, Jason?
The Republican Party finds itself in a situation where they are being held at knife point, and a man with a gun is saying, "I can stop the guy with the knife, but I will shoot you in the process."
Right.
They're in a complete no-win situation. I agree with you that Ted Cruz is probably the better prepared of the two options to stop Donald Trump. He has the money. He is regarded by virtually everyone as having the best field organization in the Republican primary. He could do it. The problem is people don't really like Ted Cruz either. So,
well, you mean the party? The Republican Party doesn't like him, or do you mean people in general? Like
the contest between the voters when Trump and Cruz have been matched up, Trump has won.
Right.
They're going for the same pool of voters in many ways. The evangelicals, hardcore conservatives. So there's not really. If you're going to try to say we can beat Trump, you have to have those moderate Republicans, those conservative business Republicans, let's say, those establishment Republicans, have to be supporting Rubio. They'd have to move to Cruz, and that may be a bridge too far.
But what if Rubio and Cruz team up to just deny Trump the amount of delegates he needs? That would be an assist to the Republican Party at this point.
Well, the problem, as we saw last night, is all of these guys, including John Kasich, believe that they all have a chance to win a one-on-one matchup with Trump. So no one's going to take that step back.
Right.
They're all locked in on being that last person standing against Trump. So unless somebody could come in and can convince 2 of the 3 to take a step back and let one of them go one-on-one with Trump, Trump is going to cruise to this nomination, unless, no pun intended, unless there is some legally allowable funny business about to happen at the Republican convention.
Gee whiz, Republicans would never cheat on something like this. They could wait for the Supreme Court to appoint someone
to be the Republican nominee.
Yes.
Well, they could if they had not justices, but since there's only 8, they're probably going to be in a 4-4 tie, and they would be screwed anyway.
Yeah. It's called they built this whole debacle, and they have nowhere to turn now.
The interesting thing about the convention is that the Republicans have basically written themselves, and they mock Democrats for having superdelegates. But the Democratic superdelegate process is actually very transparent. We know who the superdelegates are. They're 15% of the delegate count. There's nothing shady written in the convention rules or the party rules that would necessarily allow the theft of a nomination, like what Republicans are contemplating. Republicans, on the other hand, are selling their process as, you win this, you get you get a proportion of the delegates, or winner take all. Well, that's not actually 100% true. The delegates are only pledged to the candidate through the first vote at the convention, and the delegates also have no other commitment to the candidate in any of the votes, any of the rules, any of the chair appointments, anything else that could shape the convention towards one candidate or another. Those delegates aren't bound to support who they're pledged to for that first vote. So the process is basically set up so that if Trump is denied the nomination on the first vote, and that's what you were talking about with denying him the number of delegates, if they can figure out a way to deny Trump that first vote, then all bets are off, and it becomes a brokered convention. And that seems to be what you're hearing more and more and more about, is Republicans, like you just laid out the scenario, they're scratching their heads trying to figure out how they can deny him this first vote.
And they seem to come out of this, I mean, no matter which way you turn out of this thing, they're going to come out of this battered. The way these candidates are beating each other up, they're not just beating Donald Trump up, but then he's beating them up. So all of this is just, it's really quite a clown show at this point. And on the other hand, we have Democrats that have two strong candidates that the party would be happy with either one. They both are strong on very similar issues. I mean, we could sit here and parse that, but I think that when you look at while they present it differently rhetorically and maybe have a different leaning, when it comes down to the actual policies they support, they're pretty similar. And yet, on the other hand, we have Republicans, and they have this fractured party right now that's, being led by a reality TV host who doesn't even know anything about government.
As you brilliantly covered 2016, and you brilliantly covered 2012 for us. I wanted to ask you a question. Do you think this Republican primary in 2016 is worse than the one in 2012? Because you said the nominee is going to come out battered. Mitt Romney was really beat up by the end of the Republican nominee process in 2012.
I think this is worse because Donald Trump is bringing a level of attention to this that we didn't have in 2012. I mean, you've got all the political people paying attention, but with Donald Trump, you have people who normally wouldn't be paying attention are watching this. So, to me, this is worse. And, the Republican Party has continued to devolve into nothing but sort of these little crybaby obstructionists in the playground at recess screaming no, 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 and that's how they've got, they're getting branded with that. I mean, even the regular public is starting to tell them about the Supreme Court nomination, do your job. That's what everybody's saying to them, and they're refusing to do it. And I think that they're getting, now that all was coming to the forefront, and 2016 was already looking like it would benefit, or at least be easier for Senate Democrats, because less vulnerable Senate Democrats, more vulnerable Senate Republicans, which is the reverse of 2014. So the narrative that the American public wanted Republicans in control of the Senate is absolutely false. And I think that Americans are starting to see what they stand for. And if they missed it, they're having a hard time explaining Donald Trump. I hear a lot of Republicans trying to say, well, we don't support him. That's just a few people. Well, actually not. He was polling at 46% among Republican voters, so.
But, doesn't that bring up a really interesting point, that statistic? He's only polling at 46%. That means 54% of the party's against him, right, in the best case scenario. Right. And they can't get their act together enough.
Yeah, they can't get behind. They can't get behind because they don't have. I mean, the one good candidate that they have, he will never make it anywhere because he doesn't appease the base. They fed this Tea Party, which grew and grew and is really destroying the party from within.
You really shouldn't be so tough on Ben Carson as the one good candidate that would ever
yeah, not exactly the person I had in mind. But it's weird when you talk to hardcore Republicans. They think that Ben Carson is fabulous and brilliant. I mean, it's weird. It's like, are you not watching the same thing that the rest of America is watching. But in the end, what I really see happening here long term is this huge shift. It used to be that Republicans were the party of responsibility, the party of personal responsibility, the party of grown-ups, the party of governing, and now it's the other way around. Democrats are that party. And luckily, Democrats are the only party that care about the people, so we have a slight chance of possibly getting more focus on issues that really matter to people instead of being sold, wasting more time trying to debunk trickle-down lies, which is basically what our government seems to spend at least 50% of its time doing.
When you said bringing more focus to issues that matter, that's where I think Bernie Sanders fits into this whole 2016 picture. Because he's the one who's really crystallized and sharpened and brought the focus to those issues. And then you see, as we've discussed before, outsider candidates, in history, historically speaking, quote-unquote outsider candidates have their biggest impact by shaping the party they're opposing or the establishment of the party they're opposing. And what Hillary Clinton has done very intelligently is taken her policy prescriptions and she's now adding some of that populist language. And what you're getting is the impact of Bernie Sanders in reshaping the conversation, to the point where even Republicans at their zany debates are getting asked questions about things like income inequality.
I think he's doing a fantastic job with that, and the whole country owes him a huge, thank you, basically, because he has dedicated so much of himself to raising awareness to this, and as he keeps telling people, this isn't about him as a person, this is about the issues that he's trying to push to the forefront, and I think that everybody needs to remember that no matter which of these two Democrats ends up winning the nomination, this isn't about people, this is about their policies, this is about the people, not these two people.
And I think that's the major difference between what's going on in the Democratic process and what the Republicans are faced with. Because Republicans are dealing with a one-man circus.
Yeah, and the media keeps falsely equating the support for Donald Trump with the support for Bernie Sanders, which I find really offensive and pretty ignorant, because Bernie Sanders is always had a base of support. Number one, he's been in government for a long time, so to even compare those two when Donald Trump doesn't even have a policy, every day it shifts, we don't know. He just says really stupid things and people cheer. That's his main policy. To say that those two are the same, the opposite ends of the same, that's what they keep saying. They're like the coin, the opposite sides of the same coin, and it's not at all. And I don't think that Bernie Sanders is an extremist. The way that they make this equation would be that Donald Trump is to the right as Bernie Sanders is to the left, and that's just ridiculous. Donald Trump doesn't even make sense.
That's the biggest difference. Trump, as we discussed in last night's abbreviated episode, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone.
I paused there for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
It wasn't. This episode was not cut off. It was just a pause. We're still here.
Right. I haven't gone to sleep yet.
The difference is that, as you said, Trump literally makes no sense, as we discussed last night. He'll contradict himself within the same statement. Right.
I just think it's really, really offensive, and anyone who says that doesn't really know much about politics or isn't paying attention. Bernie Sanders has policies that benefit the people. I think the media is going to be shocked to find out that actually, especially with the younger generation, the idea of a democratic socialist is not frightening. In fact, people are pretty angry, and they're kind of wondering, why can't we be a little more socialist? Why aren't we, why are we even stopping at the Bernie Sanders level of socialism? We need a little bit more socialism. So,
yeah, and this is still a reaction to the Great Recession. This is the political swing that political scientists have documented throughout history. Whenever a Republican collapses the American economy, and I can say that honestly because with no bias, because it's always been Republican policies in the modern era that's collapsed the economy. The political and social reaction you see is the country to move more left. And so what was considered extreme, maybe Bernie Sanders was considered extreme